Hey guys, so I decided to come on here and kind of talk about something one of my friends was reached out to me the other day to talk about. Apparently, he has a large collection of radiated tortoises. Oh my gosh, sorry, my hair is kind of crazy. And he reached out to the people in charge, like the zoo that's in charge of the Studbook, for numbering the new offspring. He had just gotten was still waiting on some babies, the Studbook numbers for some of the babies he'd gotten years ago. He was like one of the last people issued a CBW permit before they stopped issuing CBW permits to radiated tortoise individuals, like private keepers. Anyways, he had told me when he reached out that basically he was told that the zoos are no longer working with the private sector in Studbooking, which is happening universally with zoos kind of severing their attachments to the hobby, to the private sector. And I understand why. I mean, that makes absolute sense to me, because as somebody that wanted to start a stud book on Rhino Clemmie's diatomata, because that was kind of like what I worked on and what I spent a lot of time trying to get different genetics and kind of build out a group, and then work with other private keepers to try and stud book and keep track of genetics and stuff. Well, it didn't work, because at the end of the day, most of the people that were keeping large breeding groups of diatomata were not interested in keeping track of genetics. So, and without the foolproof idea of like which, who owns what genetics, the stud book is pointless. So that's why a lot of these zoos and institutions are no longer working within the private sector. And we're going to see this happening more and more, because there's unfortunately just not a lot of interest, even though they say that they want to be involved in conservation and do these conservation things. They're not really doing that, unfortunately. I mean, there's a lot of words, but not a lot of action. And there's a few people that are trying to do it and trying to do it the right way. But unfortunately, it's just, those few people don't make the majority. And a lot of other people still have genetics that have no interest in actually, involving themselves in, conservation stud booking. So I don't know, I just thought I'd pop on here, kind of talk about some of this stuff. And if you have any questions, put them in the comments below, and I will try to address them in another short video later. But yeah, thought I'd pop on here while I was taking a walk with my dog and kind of talk about that. Unfortunately, the private sector just is losing its, or maybe just never had that level of conservation status, interest, whatever. I don't know. It's unfortunate. It's one of the reasons why it was harder and harder to stay in the hobby side of things, because if you're working for passion projects and you're trying to do things for conservation, you really can't do it very much anymore through the private sector. Yeah, anyways. All right, guys, we'll have a great, Thursday night, and I'll see you guys on the next one.